Good morning. I now convene this morning's hearing entitled Where Have All the Patients Gone? Examining the Psychiatric Bed Shortage. Ms. Starr, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee for having me here today. I'm the sheriff of Cook County, and as the sheriff, I run the Cook County Jail, which is the largest single-site jail in the country. My office is in the jail. Our average daily population is between 10,000 to 12,000 inmates, and it costs about $143 a day to house someone there. Since becoming sheriff in 2006, I have seen an explosion in the percentage of seriously mentally ill individuals housed in the jail. I've seen firsthand the devastating impact cuts to mental health programs and services have had on the mentally ill in Illinois. This is a crisis we must all care about because it affects all of us. I find it ironic that in the 50s we thought it was inhumane to house people in state hospitals, but now in the 21st century we're okay with them being in jails and prisons. On any given day, an average of 30 to 35% of my population suffers from a serious mental illness. The diagnoses fall into two main categories: mood disorders such as major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder, or psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia. While some mentally ill individuals are charged with violent offenses, the majority are charged with crimes seemingly committed to survive, including retail theft, trespassing, prostitution, and drug possession. A cursory review of our statistics tell the story. Last year, in one of my living units, 1,265 men were in that dorm on low-level drug-related offenses. The average length of stay was 87 days. At $143 a day, it cost over $12,000 just to house these individuals pre-trial because they cannot afford to post minimal bail or have nowhere to live. Many of these inmates ultimately are sentenced to probation more often than not, or sentenced to time served while they were sitting with me. The unfortunate and undeniable conclusion is that because of the dramatic and sustained cuts in mental health funding, we have criminalized mental illness in this country, and county jails and state prison facilities are where the majority of the mental health care and treatment is administered. 3 recent cases illustrate this. JJ was arrested by Chicago Police Department last May after a failed attempt to steal sheets or towels from a local Walgreens drugstore. When we spoke to him shortly after his arrest, he explained that he took the items off the shelf as he walked past the cashier, and he just asked her to charge him. He was arrested, charged with retail theft. The value of the items he stole were $29.99. He spent 110 days in my jail before sentenced to probation. During his custody, he was stabilized on medication, received drug and mental health treatment. The taxpayers of Cook County spent close to $16,000 after his failed attempt to steal $29 worth of sheets. JD suffers from a psychotic disorder and has visions that terrify him. He was arrested in California on a warrant from my county. While in custody in California, he removed one of his eyeballs in an attempt to stop seeing his visions. He lost sight in that eye, so we were alerted to this issue. He was transferred to our custody 2 weeks ago and recently attempted to remove his other eye. While staff acted quickly, we were able to stop that from occurring. We presently have him where he wears a helmet and face mask and has gloves on his hands. TA was arrested over 100 times. Her most recent arrest came after she attempted to steal $20 from a person's purse during a church service. She's a chronic self-mutilator. She attacks her arms with her own fingernails or any object she can find. To keep her safe while in our custody, we make a special mittens for her that go up to her armpits. Incredibly, she was sentenced to a prison term and recently was transferred to state hospital. We are awaiting right now her imminent return to Chicago. She has cost us conservatively, the taxpayers, over $1 million since for all of her custody. What we have done in our county now is my staff interviews every detainee before they appear in bond court regarding their mental health history. Those who admit to a history are identified for the public defender's office, and then we'd make efforts to try to appeal to the judges for alternative programs. Unlike state prisoners who have fixed release dates, pretrial detainees may be released at any time, which significantly complicates our ability to provide discharge planning. The inmates are often written information on available community resources, enrollment in county care, and allowed access to a telephone to contact someone to arrange for transportation home or to identified housing. If the inmate requires discharge to a facility on the next day, we will shelter them overnight before we'll try to get them to a hospital. If the inmate requires assistance with transportation to his or her home or shelter, we will drive them there. If the inmate is stable, coordinated releases are typically initiated by our healthcare provider. The steps are followed. Additionally, we communicate with the party the inmate is being released to. Once it is confirmed the party is outside the jail, someone from our records unit will go out there to make sure that person's there. The past practice always had been we would release them out to the street where they would wander around aimlessly for hours, if not days. If the inmate is unstable in need of psychiatric hospitalization in the community, he or she is petitioned by a licensed mental health professional. A certificate for involuntary hospitalization is completed by psychiatrists and accompanies the individual to the receiving hospital. Finally, in August, I launched a mental health helpline. It's a 24-hour helpline dedicated to assisting former mentally ill detainees or families of mentally ill detainees. The phone line is manned by members of my policy team and supported by our mental health staff. It has been an invaluable resource to the families who communicate with us through this helpline. We receive calls on this helpline 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In conclusion, we are in an unsustainable position. I often refer to the jail as the last car in a long train. Every single day, at every step before a person comes into the jail, there is discretion to arrest, to charge, and to set bond. But as custodian, I'm obligated to care for these individuals. Every day I'm faced with the mental health crisis in this county and in the country. I see the pain of those suffering from mental illness and the pain of their families who have struggled to care for them and provide them with resources. The question that plagues me, that keeps me up at night, is where do we go from here? As that question is debated, I will continue to do all I can to care for and protect for the look for increased funding to address mental illness in our country, and will continue to provide the best care I can for the mentally ill. This is truly a crisis that we can no longer ignore. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.